Well, welcome to Glasscast, a podcast of the National Glass Association and Glass Magazine. I'm your host, Katie Devlin, here once again with my terrific colleague and co-host, Sarah Neiswanger. In today's podcast, we are talking with Don Busiek. Did I get that right, Don?
You did perfect. Very impressive.
Perfect. And Don is the strategic business and technology leader for Cyncly. So we're going to be chatting about Cyncly's recent acquisition of Smart Glazer. This is an announcement that's just 3 weeks old-ish at the time of our recording, so brand new information coming out of that. And we'll be talking more high level, look at overall trends and, ordering data, the tremendous amount of data that companies are facing right now, how to manage that, technology advancements for glass companies really across all segments. And this episode is part of our ongoing series on glass factory operations, automation, and technology. All of this is previewing NGA's brand new event for the glass fabricator, GFAB, the Glass Fabricator Conference. This is coming June 14th through 17th in Chicago, and registration is now open. So head right over to glass.org/GFAB for more information and make sure you don't miss out on your chance to participate in this inaugural event. So, Don, let's get started. Can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your expertise, your experience at Cyncly and beyond?
Sure, yeah, happy to. Thanks. So as you mentioned, Don Busiek, I'm the general manager of Windows, Doors, and Glass for Cyncly. So that means really all the software that you know and love reports into me, the things that run a factory, run a glass factory, etc. The or windows or doors or glass in this case. So think products like Fenavision, V6, in this case, Smart Glazer as well. Those are three of the five, let's say, legendary products that roll into windows, doors, and glass. So
Yeah.
I've been in industrial software for really my whole life. The stuff that, runs and makes things. Um, it's always been kind of what got me excited. So really happy to be here today. Thank you guys very much. Excited for our discussion.
Yeah, well, likewise. So, Don, kind of setting the stage here for fabricators who may not be as familiar with the ordering process, what that looks like between an installer and a factory. What does that look like? Where are there friction points that tend to show up?
Yeah, it's funny. We had somebody come in and look to replace a couple windows in our house. I live in an older house in New England, and we had somebody come in and look to replace some windows recently. So you kind of see it firsthand. And what I would have said is like 80s, maybe 90s. Somebody would have come in, they would have had a big, maybe a backpack with a notepad, and they would have sketched everything out, drawn it on the yellow notepad, and showed it to, me and my wife. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you think. And as a homeowner, you're kind of half understanding what they're saying, and maybe this looks like it would be right in the window space, and not quite sure, etc. And then they would have probably faxed, and actually, this still fax machine still exists, but they would have faxed that to somebody, and that would have been put in the order, and then when did email come out? So like 90s, it became an email that they would send with a SketchUp of that drawing, etc. And that's actually some installers still do work that way, right? And that was actually my experience. I'm staring at this guy like, I can't believe you're drawing pictures on a notepad. Uh,
I
but
have something that can help you with that. No.
what's that? Yeah,
I have
exactly.
something.
I was like, let me help you with how to do this. Let's
Mhm.
let's get you out of the Stone Ages. Um, but now really the way it works, you think about that installer, part of their job is to get the homeowner excited, or the commercial owner excited, this concept of this vision. You really want to paint that vision for the homeowner. And so now when you start to move into kind of the software space, you can imagine in this case, Smart Glazer software, somebody doing the mock-up and literally showing that mock-up and saying, this is what your wall's going to look like. This is your window. This is the view you're going to have. And getting that homeowner all excited about it. You start to think about adding in all the different types of technology that's available today. You can actually literally render the new window in the wall and have the homeowner be able to see that. I mean, it's like imagine how excited I would be versus staring at a scribbled yellow notepad with, numbers written on it that don't mean anything.
It's
And
like HGTV coming to
it,
life in your own home.
exactly, that's it exactly, right? But that's how far we've come in just such a short period of time.
Mhm.
And so you think about like in the fabricator's case, so the idea is that installer now does the mock-up in Smart Glacier, sends that over to the fabricator automatically, doing that integration. It just makes everybody's life so much easier versus the concept of like, I'm a homeowner, somebody draws it on paper, 20 minutes later, maybe that person goes back to their office. 3 days later, they've sent it into to the fabricator. They've gotten some quotes. 2 weeks later, they come back to me as the homeowner and say, "Hey, here's some quotes for you." Like now, all of that is electronic. It can be digitized. It's such a smoother, easier process. So,
Mhm.
uh, yes, I probably should have said to the guy who came in, "Hey, let me show you how to do this in a better way."
Yeah.
But
Well, your windows aren't in yet, right? So
that's right.
yeah,
So there's still
there's stuff to
chance.
do. Yeah. So you and Katie both mentioned, Syncly's new integration with Smart Glazer,
Yeah.
um, a programming interface. So what, in plain terms for me and for a lot of our folks, what does that mean in terms of what else, I guess? Can you elaborate on how you got to this integration relationship? Give us that background.
Yeah. Look, historically, the windows, doors, and glass business unit, we focused on the factory. If you look at like Fenavision or V6 or Windows Designer, those are products that the factory uses to integrate to the cutting machines to basically run their factory, control inventory, you name it. Now, the thing is, if you think about the value prop, the if you extend that out, who else can benefit from that? Well, the dealer in the US, a dealer can benefit from an integration to the factory, the installer, the homeowner. There's kind of a supply chain of value, right? Or a value chain that goes from the homeowner all the way to the factory. The concept was we started out with integrations. We said, okay, let's integrate to the software that a dealer might use or that an installer might use. And then what we saw was so much value there. We said, my God, let's actually, in this case, acquire Smart Glacier to provide that value. The concept is this digital thread connecting the factory all the way to the installer and back, right? And so imagine that digital thread that instead of that kind of concept of like, oh, I gotta scribble this in a piece of paper and then maybe I send it over email and maybe somebody reads it correctly and maybe they enter the data correctly and maybe that goes to the cutting device correctly and maybe they cut the right piece of glass and maybe it gets shipped on time and maybe that gets to the homeowner in a time that the homeowner thinks it's going to be there and maybe it all works perfectly, right? That there was this huge historically, there's been a bunch of manual intervention where people have to come in and do things.
Mm.
And the concept is to digitize that process, reduce all the manual intervention, right? Smooth that process out. Imagine if I'm the homeowner and I get a report or I can look in a portal that shows me when that glass is going to show up and when the installer is going to come to do that install. Perfectly sets my expectations. I know I need to work from home that day, right? Versus going to the office. Imagine if I'm the installer and all of a sudden rather than guessing as to when the glass is going to get shipped, etc., the value comes to the installer because I can literally see when that factory is producing the glass, when it's getting on the truck, when it will come to me. Like that whole process is something that I now can control and have visibility to. So as the installer, think like not only do I have this beautiful digital thing that I can show to the homeowner and get them excited about this vision, but I also can, you know, compare my vendor quotes, understand my job status. I can schedule my crews appropriately because I know when different shipments are coming. And if I'm the fabricator, if I'm the factory, right? Think about the benefit here around a smoother, faster process, around limiting rework, around understanding my inventory, right? I can look and see here's all the orders coming in. I can understand, oh my God, I need more you name it. right?
Mhm.
Whatever
Mhm.
those parts might be, or I need to order more sheets of glass from I don't know, wherever you are in the globe, right? I was just in New Zealand and they were talking about getting shipments of glass from Latvia. So like, oh, I need to place my order with Latvia, right? Like that, understanding all that process, making it easier. That's the whole concept. And I think the beauty is it makes it easier for everybody in that value chain. The homeowner, the installer, the factory, the fabricator, right across the board, everybody's getting value from it. Uh, and you think about how expensive glass is, right? Imagine if there's rework and oh no, this glass isn't quite right. It's not what the homeowner thought, or it was cut incorrectly. Like the ability to streamline that process. It's just
Yeah, let's dig in a little bit there on the
yeah,
cost, right? Like the
yeah,
cost
yeah,
of manual data entry. I remember chatting with somebody on the shower door side, thinking
yeah,
about just calculating how many times an order was written and rewritten.
yeah,
And, sometimes you're looking at three, four times that these orders are coming through another person on another desk and another opportunity for things to go awry.
yes.
So, for companies that might not have fully quantified like what the cost of manual entry might be for them with time, errors, remakes, how do you communicate that math to them?
This is a really good question, and it varies so much depending on the company, how big they are. Is it kind of a man in a van scenario with like a couple people? Is it a larger like a glass troche, one of the giant, big glass manufacturers in the world, right? It's going to vary quite a bit, but the concepts are the same. And so think about like on-time delivery, right? That is an opportunity to reduce cost, making sure my delivery is on time. You talk about you know, the concept of data entry. Well, there's cost associated to the data entry. At each step in that value chain, someone manually typing it in, that's time. And that's more time if I have to re-enter it five, six, seven times. You use the shower example. A full shower enclosure could take like 20 minutes to enter and then re-enter, right? And so like you're just talking about time saving for people on that. But then you think about like what if that creates rework? Because, maybe I was in a rush to get out. It's 4:57 and I want to get out, right? And so I fat finger a couple things, like uh, that's possible. And now because of that, that's creating rework. Now imagine that's rework because I just created scrap in the glass. That's rework because uh, uh, I shipped it incorrectly. That's rework because I shipped it to the homeowner and it doesn't fit the window measurements that I've got. Like there's issues all over the place, right? And so the cost I think varies to your question, but there's so many spots for cost savings is the key. Um, I mentioned I think that I was just in New Zealand for work, visiting some customers and so on. New Zealand, the market is actually very different than the US. In the US, it's like, and you can see behind me, there's like windows, like a lot of kind of standard size windows. Boom, this is what we do. In New Zealand, it was crazy. Everybody, I think in part because it's such a beautiful country, everybody's got these amazing views. So there's huge, huge sheets of glass, and that's the view from the tiny house, it just has an amazing view somewhere. But the point is, if you've got a 30 by 30 piece of glass, imagine if you cut that wrong, like, wow, what is the cost of doing something incorrectly in that process? And so that's to me, I think the key is there's multiple steps in the process where you can reduce cost, improve speed, improve kind of customer satisfaction. So,
So, kind of bringing this to the fabricator
yeah.
side, I understand you're currently in beta testing with several large fabricators. I don't know if there's more that you can tell us about that before the launch, but I'm curious what the feedback from that beta testing has been telling you. Are there benefits showing up where you expected them to, or is the real world experience, what is that telling you?
So, a couple thoughts. The first is the way we do our software development, if I get a little nerdy, you know, the way we do our software development is, I think, unique in a lot of ways. Meaning, what we do is throughout the development process, from the time we start to think of an idea to the time we actually ship software, we work with customers and partners. So once a month, we're bringing to your question, we're bringing in fabricators, we're bringing in installers, we're getting their feedback. Let's take a look at this integration. What's the value you see? Is the workflow correct? Should we do it this color, like that type of thing, right? And so once a month, we're getting this feedback, and then by the time we ship the software, it actually is very much in line with what the market is looking for because we've gotten a lot of market feedback throughout the process. I think it's a little unique in the industry, to be honest. But so to your question, what's the feedback been saying? Look, I actually, knock on wood, the feedback has been incredibly positive, and maybe more even than I anticipated, because what you're seeing is it's what we talked about earlier. Each step in the value chain, the installer, the fabricator, like everybody across the board is seeing value in this integration. And so if kind of everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, no, that's actually going to help me," you get kind of this multiplier effect, right? And so the feedback has been very, very positive. I think sometimes in technology, when you work in tech, people look at something and they're like, "Oh, this is a flashy thing. It's so cool how this works," right? And you can be sometimes too excited by the cool factor, right? The flashy thing. The key for me is always return on investment, and I think you have to ground it by that. Is the customer, is the fabricator, is the installer, are they getting value? And is that value 10x, 100x, 500x what they paid for it? And I think, Katie, to get to your question, what's been really exciting for me is the amount of ROI or value that we're seeing, our partners are saying they're getting from the integration. That's when you feel good, right? You feel like you've done something correct. So, been pretty exciting.
That's awesome. That's great. Great to hear so early in the process. So congratulations
Yeah, thank
on
you.
it going well so far. So you talked about the digital thread earlier and kind of that desire for seamlessness versus kind of software islands.
Yeah.
How how does Syncly think about building that, and then why do you think it's so important? Is it something that's been missing in the fabricator market?
Hmm.
How is it special for that audience?
And so, you know, we were joking around before we started recording that I'm kind of an older guy, right? And like my wife jokingly put an AARP card on my desk this morning. It was really nice of her. But the point is, I remember when I started, um, the idea was, you don't get fired if you buy from IBM. The idea was you buy one stack, right? You buy SAP and you never buy anything else. You buy one thing. And I think the world has actually really changed from that philosophy in the 70s and 80s, right? The world now is all about an ecosystem. If you walk a factory, if you walk a plant, you're going to see a ton of different technologies. You're going to see, maybe I decided, oh, I thought this was cool accounting software, and so I bought it. And Sarah, you said, oh no, this is like really cool stuff to run the cutting machine, and so you bought that. And Katie, you were like, oh my God, this CRM is really beautiful. I'm buying this. And but the problem is none of the three of them talk, right? And so if you're the fabricator, if you're the factory manager, if you're like, no, how do I? The problem is I'm looking at like three different reports and the data is different across all three of them and it's siloed and it doesn't make any sense. And I spend more time, like we're spending more time debating the data versus actually making the right decisions for my company, right? And so that's my point of I think the world has changed. The world today is all about the ecosystem. And I think it is important for any vendor, any technology vendor, to say, my job isn't just to deliver you great software, but it's to make your job, to make your life easier by integrating that great software with the other software that you use. And so the philosophy for sure for Syncly is, how do I make the customer's life easier by creating this ecosystem of out of the box integrations for you to use to run your factory, right? Or to run your business, whatever that may be. Because the last, like, I mentioned I was on the road last week and I was talking to this guy. He started a great multi-country company. The company's, growing double digits. His son is taking over, or his two sons are taking over. You know, uh, his wife runs accounting, like great family business, doing really well. And he's like, Don, I got to be honest, I don't really know all the technology. He's like, I still go out and I draw on that yellow piece of paper and I write my specs that way. And then he goes, I give it to my son and he puts it in the software and magic happens, right? That person, we can't be saying to him, hey, you got to figure out how to integrate all this technology. It's not what he wants to do. That's not why he went into business, right? He didn't go in to try to be a tech wizard. He went in to make great glass and make homeowners happy. That's why he does what he does. Our job as technology vendors is to make that easy for him so that he can do what he's passionate about. And so yes, short answer to your question, Sarah, is yes, I think the philosophy for sure is to create this ecosystem, make it really easy for the fabricator, for the manufacturer, for the installer to just get value. I have three daughters. They grew up in kind of the tech age. They all had iPhones and so on, probably coming out of the cradle.
Mhm.
Point is, they're used to this really easy. I fire up my iPhone, I press three buttons, everything works, bang, 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 right? That's what they're used to.
Mhm.
That's our job as technologists, to give that type of a service, to give that type of a experience to our end customers. It shouldn't matter that you're in a factory, that you're walking a plant floor. You should still have that kind of ease of use. That's our mission. That's kind of the vision. So,
Well, it sounds very refreshing.
yeah,
You describe it very well.
yeah.
So I'm curious where you think the industry is now in terms of that adoption versus fast forwarding a few years, kind of crystal balling it a little bit. Um, what what do you think it will take? How long do you envision this taking? What becomes possible that isn't quite there yet today?
Yeah, yeah. Look, um, it's funny because I might have said 20 years ago that I wouldn't have predicted AI would be as big and as fast as it already is, right? So, like, predictions are only so good, but
Mm.
it, if you, we're at an interesting point in the industry where you have some companies that still literally use faxes, right? Fax machines and, you know, kind of almost like a dial-up modem type technology, right? Like that's where some people are. And then you have others who are saying, my God, the way I can grow the fastest is by leveraging digital, by leveraging technology to advance my company. And then you've got, kind of the bell curve, right? You got a big chunk of companies who are in the middle, somewhere in the middle of those two. I think what's going to happen is the companies that say, I'm tired of the view in second place. I'm tired of the view in fourth place. I want to be in first place, are going to leverage digital as the way to leapfrog the competition and to do something different and unique in the industry. Whether that's an experience for the homeowner, whether that's improving logistics and supply chain, doesn't really matter. I think technology is advancing so fast that the way to really differentiate yourself is to leverage technology. I'll give you a couple examples. Again, think about me as the homeowner. I'm here with my wife. There's some guy scratching numbers and pictures on a yellow sheet of paper, right? I'm thinking about going to sleep. The Red Sox game's coming on, like I got other things I'm thinking about. Imagine if that person had used augmented reality technology and had just done a quick mock-up and had shown me with augmented reality on, his ruggedized handheld or what have you, a view of my wall with an amazing bay window coming through, right? Now my wife and I can see that and we're visualizing and we're like, how quickly can I get this? How fast can I buy? Right? Like you can inspire someone with technology as the installer. But then imagine that whole flow, leveraging AI, leveraging other tech, like every step in the process can be enhanced. Now, again, as the owner, as the fabricator, how much easier can my life be if I'm leveraging digital in almost every facet to improve my business? Like that's where the world is going. And I think there's a stat about the S&P 500, right? And I'll get it directionally correct. So it's not 100% accurate.
That's what
But
we go for on this podcast, right?
perfect.
Directionally correct.
Directionally correct. I love that. Thank you. Set the bar really high. Uh, but like if you look at like the top 100 companies in the S&P 500, the top 500, let's say 30 years ago, the stat is something like 80% of them have turned over. And if you look in the last 5 or 10 years, it's almost been the same thing, where like the same number percentage have turned over. And you say, well, why is that? And the answer is tech. The companies that did not change their processes, that did not evolve and leverage technology, have gone the way of the dodo bird, right? They just have been bypassed. And every company that has said, I'm going to take advantage of digital transformation are the ones that are now at the forefront of their industry, the top of the S&P 500, the top of the NASDAQ, et cetera. It's almost crazy how much embracing the digital revolution has been kind of the vehicle that's allowed companies to leapfrog the competition. The reason I mention it is just that to me is the future, Sarah. Like the companies that say, I am going to embrace tech to make my life easier and to beat the competition and to give me a differentiator and to enhance whatever my differentiator is. That's the way the world is going. If I believe that as a fabricator, what makes me unique is my relationship with my customers. How do I leverage a CRM to make that better? To send my customer a birthday note automatically, right? To keep a list of like, here's what makes Katie unique. You got to remember to tell her these three things when she calls. Like that kind of thing. Like what makes you unique, and then leverage tech to make that better, right? Like that's how companies are going to get. That's how companies are going to kind of leap to the forefront, I think, in the next 10 years. It's whoever leverages tech the most and the best.
So, kind of continuing on that and bringing it back to GFAB,
Yeah.
with our GFAB event, and Cyncly has been involved in this from the start. The predecessor of GFAB was GPAD, which actually was a Fenatech then Cyncly launched event that then was brought to the NGA. Shout out to Ron Crowell,
Yeah.
just retired, for all of the work and collaboration to do that. But thinking about actualizing this tech in a factory environment. I mean, this is a daunting challenge for these owners and decision makers of the glass plant. The equipment, they're running a lot of equipment
Yeah.
that they've purchased, often on very disparate timelines, that they're
Yes.
working to optimize their plant, to keep people safe, to find the people to begin with, to just train on these levels. It's a really daunting challenge, and all of this is going to be top of mind at GFAB, but the biggest part of this is thinking about how we can bring together everybody in this universe into
Yes.
one place. So we'll have our decision makers from the fabricator, but at each part of it. So the executives, the technical folks, your engineers, and even your plant floor decision makers, alongside your technology companies and the equipment suppliers. So what, in your mind, is the importance and the value of creating something that brings these parties together to kind of tackle some of these bigger challenges?
Look, it's a great event, and I'm super, super excited about it. Um, I have several thoughts. So, the first is really, um, look, I think this is an exciting evolution of the event, right? I think it is. Um, I actually think it is a must-attend event for a variety of reasons. We just talked about how fast the pace of digital innovation is coming. You brought up the fact that a typical factory has multiple different pieces of technology on there, and the average kind of CEO who got into the industry probably isn't like the deepest technology strategist of all time. Some are, for sure, but not all of them. And so the whole point is these like the unbelievable ability to have education sessions, to collaborate, learn from one another, to hear what's happening at the forefront. What are the deep thinkers doing? How are people reducing costs? How are they getting more production out? Like that, this is a real opportunity to do all of that. So much better than like, oh, let me Google it and maybe I'll have a beer with my buddy who works at the competitor down the street. Like that only gets you so far. This is a real opportunity to get everybody together and kind of hear from the greatest minds. Like an incredibly exciting event. I actually don't see how you don't go, to be honest with you. I think everybody, like, if you don't go, my God, are you missing out? Like, that's what I think. Um, and my kids would say like FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Like I think this is a real FOMO event. Like you gotta be there or you're gonna experience some serious FOMO. That's what I would. So
Don,
um
there you said it. I don't know. No, we'll see you in Chicago for sure. This has been a really fun conversation. Thank you so much. We need to have you back on Glasscast.
yeah,
Uh,
this is great. Thank you so much.
but for now, yep, I'm Katie Devlin, Sarah Neiswanger, my co-host, and we have been chatting with Cyncly's Don Busiek. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.